This is how an early run of Fear and Hunger 2 may go for you. You start on a train, heading to the town of Prehevil. There's no particular reason behind why you chose to go to this place, only that circumstances led to you having no other choice. You see a mysterious girl before the game exclaims, "You feel like someone was watching you while you slept."
Oh god. Guys?
Sufficiently freaked out, you begin to explore the train, noticing the enormous wall of suitcases staring back at you towards the front. Something feels off. As you enter the next room, you're no longer in the train anymore. What? But I was just... Before you can even make sense of the situation, you're accosted by this janitor who, yeah, we're not gonna talk about it. We comply with his demands because obviously I'm not messing with a half-naked dude, except the girl we saw earlier grabs our attention. We try to chase after her when, oh boy, oh dear god, oh he does so much damage, oh my god, oh he's got all my, what is he doing to my, yo, okay, what the heck is going on here? And that's just the first 20 minutes of this game. You can only imagine how much more insane this game gets 12 hours later, so I'm here to tell you why Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is the best game you should never play. I know, pretty contradictory title, right? Let me explain. You see, my first introduction into the Fear and Hunger games was from a channel called Super Eye Patch Wolf, who made this spectacular video on the first Fear and Hunger game. And from what I had seen from that video, I really wanted to give Fear and Hunger a try, just because of how intriguing the game looked just watching his video, but the first one looked to be a bit too brutal for me, so I decided to start with the second game, as it's generally agreed upon that this one is basically Fear and Hunger 1, just better. I do plan on playing the first one now that I've gotten a taste of the second, because surprisingly, I got addicted to this brutal-ass game more than I ever thought I would, even if it can be really, really unfair at times.
I can't look. I hate this yeah, I hate this game. I hate this game. I hate it. 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 I can't do it.
To the point where I wouldn't have recommended it to others. At least, that's what I thought in the beginning. You see, when you take a look at this gameplay, what are you thinking of? Probably something along the lines of, well, it looks like your run-of-the-mill traditional turn-based RPG, right, Biz? And oh, my sweet little friend, how wrong you'd be.
Hey, nobody gives a shit what you want! Shut your mouth!
You see, at a surface level, this game looks like a game where you recruit party members, obtain level-ups, gain better gear, and go on a seemingly innocent journey that turns into a fight against all-powerful gods, and everybody lives happily ever after afterwards, right? Well, actually, at least one of those things was somewhat right, but you couldn't be more wrong. This RPG is nothing like you've ever played before, and it's more than just the gore and other imagery that I'm talking about here. I think a big reason why I even got into this game in the first place was because of my love for Majora's Mask. No, literally, the game has a creepy moon, you have a 3-day time limit, and one of the core plot points behind the game is a festival you're forced to take part in called the Termina Festival. The plot of this game pulls you in immediately, and it's very reminiscent of Silent Hill to me in how it begins. At the start of the game, you can pick from one of several characters, kind of like a class system from Dark Souls, and this choice is more in-depth than you could ever know, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Once we've chosen our starting character, we're asked to give our character a little backstory. Depending on the choices we make, we can outfit our character with certain skills and items that you start with, giving your character a greater chance of survival depending on what you choose. Little tip, you almost always want to choose the morally wrong option. For instance, when I played as the Doctor, deciding to try and live an honest life versus learning to be a pickpocket was the absolute wrong choice. Being a pickpocket gives you an incredibly useful early game skill, whereas the honest life choice gives you nothing. If that isn't the perfect way to sum up the Fear and Hunger 2 experience, I don't know what is. The world you're about to experience is incredibly cruel, and there's no room for morals within it, and that's something the game conveys masterfully to you within the first 5 minutes.
See? I didn't learn anything last time, but because I chose become a pickpocket, I learned loving whispers.
Anyway, after the intro and this little episode that we talked about earlier, we're magically poofed onto the top of a tower. The moon and this weird little jester looking back at us. He informs us about the Termina festival, but doesn't really give us any more information than this general tip. Head towards the tower, and he sends you on your way. We wake up from this dreamlike state, and then boom, the game begins in earnest. When you exit the train, you're met with everyone else riding the train with you, and you realize, wait a minute. All of these people are characters I could have chosen on the character select screen as well. And that's when this game started to blow my mind a little bit. Whenever you choose a character, you play the game from that person's perspective, and everybody has their own backstory for coming to this town. You can imagine the replay value this game has considering that, but for now, let's continue onward. As you talk amongst the party, you decide to begin heading towards the village. That's what everyone else seems set on doing, and there's no use hanging around the train anyway. Besides, the tower seems to be in that direction anyway, and that dude in our dream told us to head over there, and that's the only real knowledge we have about the game so far. And on your way there, you encounter this. Again, this immediately sets the tone for what you're about to experience with Fear and Hunger, both from a gameplay perspective and plot-wise. I hadn't even encountered my first enemy yet, and the game already had me at the edge of my seat. And the very next screen, my suspicions reached a fever pitch. The woodsman just brutally murders this dude, and I did what anybody else probably would have done in this situation and ran my little ass away. Before running, you can hear him scream, "The festival is upon us," as he finishes off his target. Little foreshadowing for what this game is all about, that's for sure. Anyway, I still had no idea where I was going or what to do at this point,
Right,
and upon my first enemy encounter,
I'm about to whoop that ass. Pesticide spray. Oh, canister. Oh, bruh, am I about to die?
yeah, I was getting my ass kicked. I managed to run away, but the dude had managed to poison me and I had no antidote, nor did I have any idea where to get one, and so at 1 HP, I ran into a bear trap and let Karen, one of the characters in the game, unalive me. And that was how my first run of Fear and Hunger 2 ended. No legs, poisoned at 1 HP, ending in a pathetic way with me not making a single ounce of progress whatsoever. Or at least that's what I thought. You see, my second run went just as poorly.
What in the this fire? You didn't hit him once.
Marco wasn't doing it for me, so I switched characters to my main man, Levi. With his intro, you get to start with an all-powerful gun. Heck yes. And so you guys remember that woodsman we encountered on an earlier run where I knew I didn't stand a single chance? Yeah, well, with my newfound pistol, I went straight for him and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, I got him.
I didn't even have to take a single point of damage because I shot him down outside of battle. How cool is that? The sheer amount of euphoria I felt after doing this, after not being able to defeat anything for an entire hour and 40 minutes, was indescribable, to say the least. And I think this was the defining moment where the game had hooked me for good.
Progress. Oh my god, progress.
That is until I jumped into this well right after the win and proceeded to get stuck there, effectively ending my run. I tried everything, yelling for help, trying to climb the walls, nothing worked, and so I had no choice but to start yet another run. It can feel really unfair at times. How was I supposed to know that I wasn't supposed to jump down the well, especially when the description said I could see the bottom? But the thing is, I was learning and making progress even if I didn't realize it. Now that I see that well, don't jump down there. Who do I choose at the start of the game? Well, start with Levi, so I get a really powerful gun straight off rip. Now that I've played a lot more, I realize Levi is actually kind of dog, but hey, he's really good in the early game. That way, I can kill the woodsman early and loot him for his all-powerful axe. Or this guy, who ended my runs so many different times because I kept angering him at the dinner table because he kept showing me food in the shape of you-know-what. Well, now I knew the proper options to choose to have him reliably give me a key I needed to progress without getting into a fight every single time. But then almost 30 hours of playing the game later, I fought and beat him on a completely separate run, not because I had gained levels or grinded my way there, but because I now had the knowledge to do what needed to be done in order to succeed. And if that all sounds appealing to you, man, you're gonna love this game. The number of options here to play the game your way is staggering, and I haven't even covered all the other characters in this game either. I know I briefly mentioned Levi, who is a weapons master when it comes to guns, and who you can use in the early game to trivialize some early battles, but have I told you about Marco? This guy is freaking awesome, and it's not just because he looks like a JoJo character, okay? It's because he fights with his fists. No need to equip him with an all-powerful weapon. Nope, right from the start of the game, he packs a punch, hitting twice in one turn, and the longer a battle goes on, the more powerful he becomes, turning him into a powerhouse if you know what accessories to equip him with. Then there's Dan, who's canonically a doctor within the in-game world and whose abilities allow him to harvest organs off the body parts of enemies you've defeated in order to cure extremely debilitating status effects without the need for items. Or Abella, who can access one of the most powerful weapons in the game with her ability, weapon crafting. So if you find the necessary materials early, she becomes an absolute monster who can take on the final boss of Ending B within the first hour of playtime. And I've barely scratched the surface with this, as that entire paragraph only covers 4 characters out of the 8 playable characters you're allowed to choose from, with more apparently on the way in a future update. Did I mention this game is available on Steam for $12? Remember how I said at a surface level this game looks like a traditional RPG experience? Well, I think at this point, you've realized that it's anything but. Getting in battles is usually encouraged within most RPGs because that's how you gain experience, gain levels, gain new equipment in order to take on bigger and badder monsters. This game subverts those expectations completely. You pretty much never, ever want to get into battles if you can avoid them because they give you absolutely nothing. And when you're forced into a fight, you need to use everything at your disposal in order to gain the upper hand. In my early game fight against the mayor, I used an item called pep pills to double my speed, giving me twice the amount of turns I normally would have had. I had access to a powerful endgame spell early, and I had party members along with me that I didn't know how to recruit my first time through. So what made me more powerful wasn't anything that the game itself gave me, but more so lessons I had learned myself that made me more powerful as a player, rather than any arbitrary stat increases. But Biz, I thought you said you should avoid any fights at all costs. If you don't get anything from them, and you just said you could avoid the mayor by making the right choices, then why were you fighting him in the first place? And the only way I can answer that question is by venturing into spoiler territory. So let's just say that in order to achieve certain endings, the game forces your hand. This brings me to finally talk about the Termina festival. The plot of this game revolves around it, and the first time you try resting in a bed is when you discover its true purpose. The festival is a battle royale of sorts. There are 14 contestants, and the objective is to be the last one alive at the end of the 3-day time limit. Every time you rest in a bed, which is equivalent to saving, time will pass, and characters will be in different places doing different things depending on the time of day. You can already imagine the amount of replay value this allows for because you can't possibly see everything the game has to offer on your first successful run-through. For instance, my first run through the game, I achieved Ending A. I fulfilled all the conditions I needed in order to complete it within the 3-day time limit, and to be honest, it wasn't very satisfying because it didn't really answer any questions I had surrounding the core plot points of the game. However, Ending B is where those questions get answered, and the only way to achieve it is to be the last one alive at the end of the festival, meaning everyone else has to die. And the gameplay loop completely changes because in Ending A, I was doing my best to keep everyone alive, whereas in Ending B, I'm doing my best to ensure everyone else is unalived. And I've already seen so many events that were completely different from my Ending A run as a result. For instance, in Ending A, you fight a certain boss at the end, and then while I was working towards Ending B, I actually saw that boss in the overworld regularly walking towards the tower I was supposed to make my way toward.
Oh, that's the Yo, that's the Kaiser.
And I thought that was really freaking cool because it makes this world feel so alive and real when you can see all the different characters, even the freaking final boss, go about their business within that 3-day time period. Speaking of the 3-day time period, let's talk about resource management because you're going to be doing a lot of that in this game. Before that, though, I want to talk about Resident Evil 2 Remake, on Hardcore mode specifically. You see, on Hardcore mode, the game is much more difficult. Zombies do way more damage to Leon if you get bit, you get less ammo, less healing items, and to top it all off, you have to find an ink ribbon, an in-game item, in order to save the game. And there aren't an unlimited amount of these, no. You get around 25 saves throughout the game, which may sound like a lot, but trust me, it's not. And so you can't just go around saving the game at every typewriter you find, which can make survival horror take on a whole new meaning when you're 3 hours deep since you've last saved the game and on your last bit of health, but you've used up all your ink ribbons and are now frantically searching for one before that zombie you didn't see around the corner takes a bite out of you, putting you down for good. The stress I felt playing this game on hardcore mode was unlike any other, and there were times I didn't even want to start up the game unless I knew I had a lot of time on my hands because I knew each play session was going to last until I found the next ink ribbon, or if I ended up dying due to making way too many mistakes. But that's the beauty of hardcore mode. Even if you end up losing hours of progress, in reality, you probably only lost 30 minutes. Because on the next run, you can use the lessons you learned to circumvent obstacles that gave you trouble before, saving ammo where you used it up last time, or dodging that zombie because you know exactly where it is, and it can make for a super satisfying gameplay loop than what you would normally experience on the standard difficulty. And Fear and Hunger 2 takes the hardcore mode experience and runs with it. I already told you knowledge in this game is everything, and it's very much a game about trial and error. You experiment, trying different things, and sometimes things work, and other times they go horribly wrong.
I almost stepped on that pressure plate.
And so on your next run, you can adjust accordingly in order to go further than you did last time. The only catch is you have limited saves, just like the ink ribbon in Resident Evil 2. But you don't get 25 of them. Oh no, you get 8. Remember, every time you rest in a bed, time will pass in intervals. The first time you rest, it'll turn into the evening of the first day. The next time after that, it'll be nighttime. Rest again, and it will be the morning of day 2. Rinse and repeat until the night of day 3. Rest again, and then, something bad happens. And, I'm not telling you what. So Fear and Hunger 2 very much recreates that hardcore mode experience where I'm stressed out of my mind, barely hanging on to life with my characters, wondering if I should risk continuing onward to make more progress or just going ahead and saving my game so I don't have to stress out anymore. But do that too much and you've got a problem on your hands. Saving isn't the only thing that you have to resource manage. Your food, your sanity, all of it plays a part. Your hunger meter will constantly tick down no matter what you're doing, and if it gets too low, you'll suffer penalties. Your characters will be less effective in battle, and it can even get to the point where you're unable to walk, so you have to constantly keep your party well fed as a result. But food is a limited resource, and so the more mouths there are to feed, the more your supply is going to diminish. And given how tough battles are in this game, you almost always want a full party with you to increase your chances of survival. But sometimes, it may be better to stash your party at a safe area and go exploring by yourself to stock up on necessities and figure out where to go next, so that you'll waste less resources than when you're with a full party. That's not to mention your mind, which is a completely separate bar you have to manage, and each character has their own mind gauge, and if it falls below 50%, the game tells you this. It's really impressive how complex this game is when it comes to all the mechanics you need to keep track of, and I know it sounds really overwhelming because it kind of is. The constant tension this game creates by having you manage all this at once, though, is unrivaled. I've literally never played a game like this ever before, and yes, it is overwhelming. But the more you play, the more of an expert you'll become at it, and trust me, getting good at this game is kind of addicting. One of the things I hate most about traditional RPGs are random encounters. They're the quickest thing that make me go, nope, I'm not playing that. I absolutely hate them, and I think they should stay out of the medium forever. I get that they were used back in the day as a way to make a game feel longer than it is, but I literally cannot play a game with random encounters anymore. Final Fantasy VII, one of my favorite RPGs ever, I can't go back to the vanilla version. Seeing this every 3 seconds, oh my god, stop! And so Fear and Hunger 2's way of handling enemy encounters is just perfect. Then again, with how hard the battles are, it couldn't have been done any other way. You see, in Fear and Hunger 2, battles are initiated anytime you make contact with an enemy in the overworld. This isn't revolutionary by any stretch of the imagination, but what is really cool is that when you defeat an enemy, they stay dead. Remember what I said earlier about there not being really any reward for winning in battle? Well, that wasn't entirely true. In this game, part of the reward is that you no longer have to fight that enemy ever again if you overcome them. Doesn't matter if you go to another screen, come back, rest out of bed, save the game, no matter what you do, that enemy's body will be there forever. And you can even interact with the body in several different ways, doing things that I won't go into detail describing. And you can use those items you've obtained from the bodies you've collected as skill points to become more powerful using the Hexen, which is literally just the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X if you've ever played that. So while I did say you want to avoid battles as much as possible, I more so meant avoid battles you know you can't win as much as possible, which in the early game is almost everything. Either way, the game keeping everything you defeat for good serves two purposes. Firstly, it really drives the point home that these aren't just random fantasy monsters you're unaliving here. These are living, breathing beings, and when you get into a battle, it's them or you, and you're reminded of that every time you pass by a body. This is also true for your party members. There's no such thing as Phoenix Downs, revives. Nah, if your party members expire, they're gone for good, and they'll still be down in the exact same spot you left them in 5 hours ago. So again, not your typical RPG. Secondly, this design philosophy of enemies staying subverts your expectations in ways you would never expect. Let me tell you a story. You see, on my second playthrough of this game, while I've been trying to achieve a different ending, I'm much more readily equipped than I was the first time through. I have more knowledge of what enemies to fight, which to avoid, where to recruit specific party members, and so on and so on. So I hadn't died a single time, fought enemies at the appropriate times, and even had access to a really powerful endgame skill that I achieved as a result of getting one of the endings in my first playthrough. Needless to say, I was OP in comparison to the first time I played this game, so I dispatched pretty much all the enemies in both Prehevil and passed the gates fairly easily. And because enemies stayed in this game, I just assumed that walking through it gleefully would not be an issue, since I took care of everything there was to take care of, and at least in these areas, I should be completely safe. Oh, how wrong I was.
Whoa, shit, I forgot about this guy. Ah!
As I was traveling through one of the safe areas, all of a sudden, this freaking dude climbs out of his tomb and starts chasing me around like a madman. I almost get caught by him, but just barely managed to escape, only to realize I'm gonna need to go back through there at some point, and he's alive wandering the corners of what I thought was supposed to be a safe area. And what do you know? As I inevitably travel back through that area, he finds me, starts cackling horrifically as he slices my limbs off, and it's game over for me, because this guy is far stronger than anything you'd normally find in that area. All this to say, you're never safe in this game. There will always be something around the corner waiting to surprise you, and you can never breathe easy. I really should have known the game is called Fear and Hunger for a reason. The battle system itself in this game is really rewarding in a weird way. It uses a system where every enemy has particular body parts that you can target, and depending on the enemy, you want to prioritize certain limbs before going for the torso or head, where attacking those regions will actually win you the battle. So if the enemy you're fighting is holding a weapon in one hand but nothing in the other, you usually want to go for the limb with the weapon because it poses more danger to you. But then you'll fight somebody like the guy who comes out of the tomb and he has weapons in both hands, so shit. Knowing the best way to approach these enemies is another part of the trial and error experience because there's no way to know which parts are going to be the most dangerous to you until you fought them a couple of times. But once you know what to look out for, whether to just go for the torso or the head, or whether to attack the legs first, or maybe go for the limbs that have party-wiping moves, it all turns into a very satisfying puzzle to figure out. By the way, enemies can also do this to you too, and if you lose both arms or legs, good luck. That's not to mention the rev mechanic as well, which I think is a really cool addition and one of my favorite parts of this game by far. By revving up during your turn, you increase how powerful your attack is. Each time your rev gauge builds by 1 until you reach 3 rev points, and if you use 3 rev points at once, you can attack twice in one turn. So it becomes this risk-reward scenario on top of the limb system where you start to question, okay, should I try to go for 3 rev points, or have I done enough damage to where 1 or 2 rev points will take the limb I need out? Enemy designs as well in this game are spectacularly creepy, and Miro, the developer, uses the turn-based battle system in a really unique way. You see, one of the enemy types in the game is called a Dark Priest, and if he sees you, he'll chase you down until you get into a fight with him. Right from the offset, I'm creeped out by this guy as the text says, "An eerie silence precedes the Dark Priest before you." Okay, please God, kill him quickly. But then after my turn, it's his, so I brace for whatever he's about to attack me with, except he doesn't. He just wastes his turn to smile at you creepily, and Honestly, that was more damage than any attack he could have thrown at me, and I didn't give him a chance to do what happens next, cause I went full throttle with my party making sure I wouldn't find out. Then just to relish in my victory, I gave him the beatdown, only to have the game tell me this. There are numerous examples of things like this happening throughout the game, and I'm not going to spoil them all for you here, but just know this game will constantly surprise you in ways you'd never expect. I do want to touch on one of the worst things I disliked about this game, and I'm sure people who've played this before probably already know what it is, and that's the coin flips. There's usually a solution to pretty much everything that most people would find unfair in this game. It's just a matter of whether you're willing to go through enough trial and error in order to find it. That being said, coin flips are not really like that at all. Every time you want to open a treasure chest, coin flip. Every time something bad happens in this game, which is a lot, coin flip. And you want to guess these right, because if you don't, well, let's not talk about it. There are ways to avoid this in battle, where you can guard with your lead character if you think the enemy is about to do something suspect, and the game will even warn you, sometimes, but it's not a surefire method to avoid every coin flip that may be game-ending. Even then, if you do get caught in a coin flip, there's the lucky coin system, where you can flip 2 coins at once to minimize your chances of failing the flip. But just like everything else in this game, you have a limited supply of lucky coins, so you have to choose when to use them wisely. Should you use it to increase your chances to make sure that chest gives you a valuable item you might need, or should you save it for that inevitable moment where the enemy catches you off guard? Usually, the answer is the latter. Either way, even if coin flips are pure RNG, there are ways to minimize your chances of losing them, so it's not all bad, but it can get extremely frustrating when you're forced into a coin flip situation, flip 2 coins, and still lose your run even though you did everything right. This especially applies to a certain final boss that forces you into a coin flip scenario if something happens. If you've played this game, you know what I'm talking about. So, as annoying as that is, should you never play this game?
Look at this shit. Fuck! Fuck this shit. This fucking game and everything with it.
Of course, I'm exaggerating a bit with that title. I will say I certainly don't think this game is for everyone. It can be pretty brutal. The imagery can be unsettling, the resource management can be stressful, and then there's even the limited saves, and honestly, the list just goes on, and to most people, that would sound like a bunch of cons, right? But for me, I think they play to the game's strengths. Gaming these days feels incredibly boring to me, and I think a huge part of that is due to the amount of hand-holding that is so blatantly implemented within them. Developers feel like you just absolutely need to know what every little single button press does, when to use it, when not to use it, blah 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 blah, and shut up. It feels really refreshing when a game is willing to not only not hold your hand, but to slap it away. The tutorial? Psh, that only comes after you've game overed over and over and over again. The tutorial is the game over, and you will learn your lessons from each game over, otherwise you're not going to make any progress. But the best part is the game implements these lessons so that you're guaranteed to learn them without beating you over the head with a hammer about it.
Wait. I should read this.
That first battle with the woodsman you'll most likely get into? Now you'll know. Avoid battles as much as humanly possible. And even when you win a battle, what have you learned? There's no such thing as experience here, and resources are hard to come by, so choose your battles carefully. And these lessons will continue to reveal themselves to you slowly but surely, giving you challenge after challenge after challenge until you either fail—
Tails never fails!
or stand at the precipice. And not to steal from Super Eye Patch Wolf, but if that's not a lot like real life, then I don't know what is. So yes, this game isn't for everyone. It can be cruel and unfair and bullshit, and at times you'll want to play literally anything else. But that feeling of overcoming what you thought was once an insurmountable challenge is what'll keep you coming back for more. All in all, I think that's a beautiful lesson for a video game to teach you, and is all the more reason why maybe, just maybe, you should actually play Fear and Hunger 2, Termina. Well, I think that's gonna about do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. But before I let you guys know, I was streaming Fear and Hunger 2 here on the channel pretty much the entire playthrough, and we had quite a good time doing it, and I haven't played Fear and Hunger 1 yet, so I think I'm gonna stream that here on the YouTube channel as well. So if you guys might be interested in watching that, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell as well, because that's the best way to get notified of when I'm gonna be streaming Fear and Hunger 1 here on the channel. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have yourselves a damn good one. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.